down. Let's make it our business. A climate podcast that's about innovators, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are taking actions, creating solutions, and inspiring many. This podcast is supported by US Department of State, created by BBC Media Action, India.
Whether you are a bride, a groom, or just someone looking to party with a purpose, this episode is for you. Hello and welcome to Cool It Down. My name is Sayema and the podcast is all about unpacking big ideas to make our planet a little greener. Today we are diving into the extravagant world of the great Indian wedding. These dazzling celebrations are packed with food, flowers and festivities, but they also leave behind mountains of waste. To help us rethink how we celebrate, we have two incredible guests. Swati Singh Sambyal, a global expert in waste management and circular economy. She's spent over 14 years helping communities and businesses manage waste sustainably. And Ashwin Malwade, founder of Green Mina, a company turning weddings, birthdays and other events into eco-friendly celebrations. Let's find out how we can make weddings grand and green. So looking forward to this conversation on yet another episode of Cool It Down. We are going to explore practical, impactful ways to make our lives more sustainable. Today we dive into one of the most celebrated and, let's face it, one of the most extravagant events in our culture, Indian weddings. They're beautiful, joyous and full of tradition, but they also come with an environmental cost. With me is sustainability expert Swati Singh. She'll help us unpack how we can transform these grand celebrations into something more eco-friendly. Swati, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Swati, Indian weddings are famous for their grand scale and sparkle, but they also produce a lot of waste. How can the idea of a circular economy change the way we celebrate these weddings?
Well, as you rightly said, Indian weddings, they can span multiple days and involve hundreds and thousands of guests at times. If you look at some estimates, an average 3-day Indian wedding, it produces roughly about 800 to 1,000 kilos of wet biodegradable waste and about 1,500 kilos of dry waste.
Wow.
So when we look into weddings, apart from the glitz and glitter and bling, there are also massive quantities of resources that are being consumed and wasted within a span of, say, 3 to 5 days, right from food waste to floral waste, single-use decor, disposable tableware, fashion, the clothes you buy, which may be a one-time or a two-time or not beyond 5 times.
Yeah.
And also the energy use. So clearly, incorporating circular economy principles are crucial because I truly feel that to honor your partnership, you also need to honor the earth that holds you, whose resources you consume every day.
Right.
And we say cleanliness is godliness. So of course, if we invite blessings of God during our marriage ceremonies, we are half blessed if we are wasteful. So clearly, circular economy strategies are crucial for planning Indian weddings, and it does not mean that you're deviating from your customs or you're sacrificing the vibrancy or cultural richness of Indian weddings. Instead, it offers an opportunity to infuse traditions with innovation, ensure these celebrations honor not just familial and social traditions, but also the planet.
And I want to bring in a very philosophical angle here because, whenever we are in school and we're learning about our climate and nature and environment, I believe a whole lot of us pledge in our childhood that when it's going to be our time of wedding, we are not going to make it, an extravagant affair, and we'll be not wasting so much food and money and all of that. But what happens when we grow up? What happens, what is that one stage when emotions take over, that Arman, takes over? And how would you suggest dealing it at an individual level and also at the level of maybe telling our elders that this is what we want to do? Because I do believe the whole lot of us sort of, think in that direction, but the belief is there, but the conviction is where we lack. So yeah, if you can add some words that would help us as individuals to maybe convince our elders that we should not be wasting so much. What is that one maybe cheat dialogue that you can suggest?
Yeah. I'm sure we all have seen this. I remember when I got married in 2016, and I wanted a small hill wedding in my hometown with very limited number of people. And of course, my parents got offended because they were like, it's the first wedding, and we have to have everyone over. But
Yeah.
somehow, I navigated it through because this is the work I do. So I have to practice what I preach. And I did honor their demands of having more people, but then on a condition that they honor my demand of doing it in a more resource intensive way, which is, ensuring we use steel cutlery. We do not use disposables at all. We have dispensers for water. So
Wonderful.
I feel, yes, it is complicated to navigate it through, your parents and elders due to these sensitivities around cultures and traditions and practices that have been being carried along since many, many years or hundreds of years, so to say. But I feel awareness and also communicating rightly to them
Yeah.
and making them accept the fact that why you're doing this, and it definitely aligns with their core of tradition and culture and not deviates from that.
Yeah.
So I feel if you're able to do that, I'm sure there's a bridge that you can make between sustainability and tradition and marriages.
And if I might add that if we can turn into disruptors in this age and highlight that on social media by actually showing that, we did something very differently and in an ethical way, I think, that just helps a whole lot of others have that little fight with their parents and elders. Swati, we are talking about how not to make it lavish, but let's face it, weddings, they do turn out to be lavish and wasteful too. Can you share some quick and easy tips for handling, let's say, floral waste, leftover food, reducing plastic use?
Sure, sure. Of course, to start with, I feel segregation is important. If you look at from a policy perspective, weddings come under events that do generate waste. So basically, under the law, you do have to ensure that when you're organizing an event and weddings are included into that, you have to segregate your waste into wet and dry waste further into different components such as paper, glass, plastics, etc. If those streams are coming out. So segregation is the key. Additionally, for food waste, it has to be ensured that biodegradable waste goes to a particular vendor. If it's leftover food, you can tie up with some local NGO banks that take food and then maybe distribute it to some underprivileged communities.
That's right.
And I feel it's a win-win situation in every way. When it comes to floral waste, we have a lot of companies in place. There's a fascinating organization called Fool.co that turns used flowers into eco-friendly products like
Wow.
incense sticks or organic fertilizers. There's another agency called Gulmeher. So these are just one or two odd examples, but then, companies that use flower waste to convert it into products, be it stationery, be it incense products, any floral waste from a wedding would be a very rich feed for them. So I feel you could tie up with these agencies, or if that is also not possible, just tie up with your local municipal vendor who can then take back this floral waste,
Right.
which would be either composted or disposed properly.
Right.
Another waste that we often use is the decor that we do during weddings. And I feel rather than procuring these items, look out for rental decor items, which can be reused over and over again for multiple occasions. And that
Right.
there are such companies that are available, who would be more than happy to uh, sort of beautify your stage with their props, and they can be either rented or custom made as well.
Great.
Last but not the least, avoid single use plastics. cutlery completely. Yes.
Swati, we are of course discussing a lot of ways in which we, without sacrificing, the big and the impressive custom and traditions that are often associated with Indian weddings, we're trying to make it eco-friendly. But I want you to tell me or give me examples that you know of couples who have managed to pull off an amazing eco-friendly wedding. What did they do differently, and how did they, make it memorable?
Well, I'm sure this is becoming really common nowadays to have more intimate personal weddings. I attended a fascinating wedding of a friend, which was online because the couple, they both are practicing doctors, and they just wanted to do a wedding in their backyard. And at the same time, they didn't want people. So they just ended up doing an online wedding where they exchanged their vows. There were one or two friends who were there at the site, but then most of us, including many family members, joined online. So I felt that was a really different, resource efficient way of doing a wedding where you can get blessings of everyone, friends and family. But at the same time, they made a conscious choice to not spend much on their wedding, more so because of their demanding jobs, but also because of the fact that they felt it's very, very wasteful. So they chose to just go entirely online and use Zoom to do a wedding in their backyard, which I feel was amazing and so circular.
Yeah, and during COVID time, I remember a whole lot of people went for such alliances, but the basis was maybe adversity and that we couldn't do the festive occasion and stuff. But look at this. I'm sure you can forget a whole lot of big and festive weddings, but this one wedding that you spoke about of your friends is something that you will never forget ever. So yeah, that's how you make it memorable. That's how you make it extremely eco-friendly too. Swati, we always talk to entrepreneurs on our podcast and we discuss ideas that they can take ahead and make it into their business. What are some ideas for young entrepreneurs who want to make weddings more sustainable? Do you see any opportunities for them?
I feel there's a lot of space within the eco-conscious wedding planning services. And these agencies, can have the opportunity to provide end-to-end sustainable solutions, right from zero-waste decor rentals, upcycled fashion collections, to maybe carbon-neutral venues, and also digital platforms for invitations and guest management.
Right.
Because even if a couple today decides to have a zero waste wedding, what are the 10 steps ahead to plan it? Not everyone will have that richness of knowledge, and I feel such event planners are quite crucial.
Yeah.
Another promising idea is there's a lot of floral waste that is generated during weddings, and this is an area that has not been tapped much. So maybe, floral waste repurposing businesses, which would turn discarding blooms into, say, compost or natural dyes or incense products. We don't have many, local agencies that are thriving into this aspect. Also, vendors offering customizable, sustainable wedding packages with options like maybe plant-based catering or biodegradable cutlery or eco-friendly gift registries, which can cater to the growing demand for, green celebrations when it comes to wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
So fabulous ways of even inviting nature and climate into your wedding. That was really fabulous. Swati, thank you so much for all these wonderful insights. It's inspiring to know that with a bit of creativity and intention, we can make weddings not only beautiful, but also kind to our planet. To everyone tuned in right now, if you are planning or attending a wedding soon, think about how you can make even a small difference. Thank you so much, Swati, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And before we hear more,
Dear listeners, you have a role to play in cooling it down. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about this podcast with just a mail away. Cool it down at in.bbcmediaaction.org or simply click the link in the descriptor of this episode. After all, we got to hashtag cool it down.
we are now joined by our second guest. He's special because he's gonna find the way to make our functions grand and green. Ashwin Malwade, founder of Green Miner. He was in Merchant Navy and then he turned green event planner. Together we'll uncover how we can celebrate love responsibly while keeping the planet in mind. Let's get started. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sayema. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, and really appreciate being on Cool It Down and being on this platform. Really looking forward to a conversation this evening.
Ashwin, your journey from marine conservation to planning green events is so interesting. What inspired you to start Green Miner?
Well, I think it's a 17-year journey that had my professional career, and I'll just slightly correct you. It was in the Merchant Navy, the marine conservation.
Okay.
But yes, I was in the Merchant Navy. I joined at a age of 17 and a half, out at sea, and in the year 2004. And slowly but gradually, I'd seen the ocean, quickly change in front of me, and I'd seen pristine blue waters, virgin beaches turn into plastic havens, and I would see that, but there was I didn't know what to do about it, nor I was willing to probably bring that change in my life back then in those days.
Right.
And there was a moment, at the dead of night in the year 2016 when I saw a floating toilet seat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean,
Oh,
where there was
gosh.
no land on the either side, for 3,000 miles. And that's where it kind of struck me that plastic pollution has reached ginormous levels, and there is something that needs to be done about it. And that's when I made up my mind that when I come back to India, I want to do something for this cause. And that's why I started looking up online on what I can do. And that's how I started, I came down and joined a beach cleanup movement here in Mumbai. And that's where my journey started. And that's how I understood that probably there's a lot more than just beach cleanups that one can do to change people's mindsets. I got involved in community sensitization. I was working on ground, meeting policymakers, giving talks in schools and colleges. And that's how the whole journey began, and realized that it's us who have polluted the planet, and it's us who can bring about the change.
Right.
That's where actually wisely in the beach amidst trash is I met my wife Nupur, now wife Nupur. And we fell in love amidst heaps of trash, and I proposed to her a couple years after. I told her that on one condition we get married is we'll have a low waste sustainable wedding.
Wow.
And she obviously didn't know. Both of us didn't know what that meant back then, because there's something like this was never done earlier. I said, so let's go. I said, okay, one thing, I proposed to her. I went back to her family. They said, okay, let's plan the wedding. And when you went out there to speak to wedding planners and tell them that you want to do a sustainable, eco-friendly wedding, there was no one out there to help us. And they all jargons like, okay, let's make it sustainably cute, and make it sustainably eco-friendly. I said, what do you mean?
Right.
I said, because for me, for Nupur and I, sustainability means whatever we found at the beach should not, while cleaning it, should not be at a wedding. That was as simple as that. You can break it. You don't have to. And some of them came back to and say, oh, let's do an awareness program. I said, it's not an awareness program. It's a regular Indian wedding that we want to do.
They really did not have the solution, huh?
Yeah, no one had the really solution for the same. And that's where we kind of realized that we need to go above and beyond, what the wedding planner is telling us. And so we kind of reverse engineered our own wedding. And that's how we got down to planning, understanding, learning from the ground, our work on weekends of what event waste shows up on the beaches, and, try not to have at a wedding. And that's how we went about it. And the actual day of the wedding, we had a waste management team that came on site, and they actually went back empty-handed because there was no waste as such generated.
Wow.
And this was in December 2019. that we had our own wedding. Obviously we did this for the environment, and wanted to actually do something good on a special day. But when we spoke to a friend of ours who was an editor of a magazine, she thought, okay, there is a story in this, and the world needs to know what we have done. And this was just at the start of the pandemic, Saima, everyone is kind of locked in the homes.
Yeah.
People are depressed of what they're seeing around, and she said, let's bring some positivity through this article. And she published it, and it went viral. Absolutely. I mean, we had print media calling, radio stations, bloggers, everyone calling us saying, "Oh, what have you done? Can we? And how do you go about it?" And friends and family reached out to us that, "Oh, we want to do our own wedding, plan our own wedding, the sustainably. Can you help us?" And that's when Nupur and I thought that, okay, through a limited circle, we can reach so as many people. Let's form a small company, and this is purely a passion project.
Okay.
And we want to just educate people and change mindsets. And that's how in September 2020, Green Miner was born.
And why did you name it Green Miner?
So Green Miner, firstly green for the sustainable,
Right.
eco-friendliness. But Miner was a word that we really thought over a long time. We didn't know. We wanted to know that the prefix should be green, but we didn't know what the last word should be. And when we were actually planning, thinking about what the name would be, actually there were two miners that actually came and sat on the porch of a window. And then we researched and we realized that the miner bird pairs for life. And always it's a good omen to see a miner or two miners together.
Wow.
And I said, okay, it's the most commonly seen bird, at least here in Mumbai. And I said, let's call it Green Miner. That's how the advent of the word Green Miner happened. Honestly speaking, there was no kind
So
of.
this is very interesting.
science.
This is very interesting because now we know there's nothing called unconditional love. That's for sure. It comes with its own conditions, like you put in front of Nupur. And the second is a question I don't want you to answer because we already know the answer. Who do you love more, Nupur or planet Earth? So yeah, it's not a question. Well, but this is very, very interesting. Ashwin, if someone wanted to plan a green wedding, what would it look like? Can you share some easy tips for like a sustainable celebration of sorts? How did you go about it?
I think I'll just go back to a green wedding or an Indian wedding 50 years before. I think India was largely very, very sustainable, in its way of living and way of, celebrating events. And that's what at Green Mana we want to do, that just take back couples 100 years ago when their grandparents got married, how sustainably things were done. And typically a Green Mana wedding will have absolutely no single-use plastic. You will have water be served in steel glasses or through water stations. You will have food which is very carefully curated, which will have minimal wastage to it. You will have a waste management team on site.
Right.
You will have decor which is absolutely zero waste. When I say zero waste, I mean zero waste to landfill. With nothing out of the decor will eventually go to a landfill. So we use all natural elements, natural flowers. We ensure that whatever can be reused after that event should be done. So very mindful of the use of power at the weddings that we curate. So we
Right.
ensure that it's most of the weddings are held in the daytime. If it's held at night, minimize the use of generators. So we do a lot of micro planning. We also say, okay, there's no point calling it a sustainable wedding. There have 3,000 people in it. So it was to be mindful of the RSVPs. Have a very intimate gathering.
Right.
So a lot goes on to it. I mean, the moment we get onboarded for any wedding, and the planning typically starts 6 months in advance.
Right.
So we actually break it down to the finer details.
Right.
And we also sometimes look into if it's a destination wedding and where the resort where the guests are staying, we ensure that waste management is done even in the rooms. there. So the waste is segregated in rooms of the guests, so that we are absolutely sure that nothing from this wedding or from the guests that are there, any of the waste actually goes to a landfill, because it
Right.
puts in immense pressure on the city or the town that you actually is hosting your wedding.
So you are
And
not
I think
really
people should
giving
be
in
mindful of that.
to the buas and pupaji's demands and nakhres. You're like really focused about that. That
No, I think we are for example, I think the word Fufajis will kind of resonate with what we say, because when they probably got married, this is how the way it was done. A
right.
simple thing like not using plastic gift wrap over wrapping it in newspaper,
Hmm.
or that was something which is done because there was nothing of that sort available back in India.
That's true.
Just after independence and economy had not opened up, at food wastage was criminal back then, because India was going through famine.
Right.
It was the green revolution hadn't happened, so we were very mindful of also of food waste. So this is what we are kind of incorporating what happened 50 100 years ago back into the wedding industry now.
Right. So back to basics. But Ashwin, I have to ask you this. Whenever we're talking about sustainable products and all of that, one thing that comes to mind is because we will be changing what is regularly being supplied, we might run into a lot of expenses. So let me ask you this. Are green weddings expensive, or can they be as budget friendly as regular weddings?
Absolutely, it will be probably budget friendly, if not cheaper than a regular wedding. Just to give you an
Mm-hmm.
example, we had a couple who, instead of giving return gifts to all the guests who had come for the wedding, they planted a tree in their name, and they actually
Oh,
physically
wow.
did that on site at a garden in Mumbai. Planted 250 saplings for all the guests who were coming in for the wedding. One is to obviously, this is something that they want to do for the guests as a return gift, but also to
Mm-hmm.
offset their carbon footprint,
Wow.
for the travel that they were going to that particular destination. And they club this with a pre-wedding photo shoot. So you do a tree plantation, which is a pre-wedding photo shoot. So you
Oh,
kind of don't
nice.
spend on that. Then I mean, you have these tiny plastic bottles at weddings and events. When you do away with that, and you have hydration stations. Firstly, one is you avoid the
Mhm.
single-use plastic. Second is you used to save a lot of money.
Right, right, right.
Decor, rather than flying in expensive orchids and flowers from across the country or world, you're using local flowers. So
Hmm.
you're no way kind of downsizing your or wedding or event. You're just being mindful of the usage
That's right.
and its afterlife. So that's and so I think that is absolutely no brainer. And if we break it down into numbers, we have come to the conclusion actually cheaper.
Right.
And these are just small things, small changes that you do in the basic planning of the wedding.
But tell me honestly, Ashwin, do people easily understand the value of green events? I mean, I do understand that people who come to you and they ask you to plan their green weddings, their intention and their focus is just right. But the guests who come in for these, do they value these green events, or do you still have to explain why this is important?
Yes and no, but we also make it a bit of a PR event when we actually do these weddings. I'll tell you, break it down, Saim. A lot of the weddings that we do are in tier 2, tier 3 cities where there's absolutely no waste management facilities available. So
Right.
what we do is we create a composting pit somewhere near the venue or outside the venue. So
Mm-hmm.
that becomes like a photo op.
Ah.
Opportunity. So where we actually the whole process of the waste management is happening live. We get
Hmm.
the couple post their wedding to put in all the wedding flowers into the compost pit.
Wow.
So there is and then people who are coming in also see, and so there's a lot of inquisitiveness because they have not seen something like this before. Then they ask us, oh, what is happening? Then we tell them how is compost actually made, what happens to during a regular wedding, what happens to the waste or the plastic waste is generated,
Hmm.
why waste segregation is so important. So when we break it down and tell them numbers, they are really feel, oh, why didn't we do it for our own wedding or our daughter's
Oh,
wedding
that's
or our son's wedding?
fabulous. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a mixed bag.
Hmm.
It's not a purely an awareness program, but when you break it down That's when they realize, and we have often had guests who attended the weddings that we curated coming back to us and go, "Hey, my daughter is getting married. Can you also do it for us?"
Wow. So that's very encouraging.
It's a knock-on effect,
Exactly.
you know. So
And the idea of green celebrations, it's quite amazing. Do you think, Ashwin, more people can join this space, and there are exciting opportunities lying ahead for them as entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. I think we would love to have more green miners like us around the country, because we also have limited bandwidth and there is huge potential. Our planet is staring at a climate crisis, and I think all of us should be mindful of the same. Typically, to give you numbers, each Indian wedding creates about 300 to 500 tons of carbon emissions.
Right.
That's probably one person's emission in 2 lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
So and about 4,000, 3,000, 4,000 kilos of waste. These are mind-boggling numbers. Now today, couples are growing quite eco-conscious. They want to do this. Unfortunately, there are not many like us out there today who can actually take this forward. And we would love to encourage handhold entrepreneurs out there who want to learn from us.
Wow.
And because we call Green Mine as a social enterprise. It is actually here to change mindsets where profit is secondary. So I mean, we are more than happy to, whoever entrepreneur is listening to us and watching us today, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you out.
And Ashwin, you're making it sound hunky-dory, as if everybody is willing, but I will come back to that point. When an elder in the family goes, "Mere bahut arman the, itni badi shadi hoti, lavish shadi hoti," and that's where I want you to give individual goals. As an individual, what is it that I need to do? How can I contribute to this trend of green weddings? Because this trend is something that has to go on. It should not fizzle out. So as an individual, what is it that I can do?
I think firstly we can do is, as an individual, is ensure just go back to your homes and look at your kitchen. Can you just go and segregate your waste? I think that's the biggest service you can do to humankind.
Right.
As such, be mindful of the kind of single-use plastic that you use in your everyday life. Consume less. I'm focusing so much on plastic, but textile waste has become a huge problem. Other than waste, can we now upcycle waste? Use upcycle clothing. Can we reuse? Can we do thrift? One of the things we also encourage our clients is to thrift, or actually, like for example, Nopur actually reused a mother's wedding sari into a lehenga. She repurposed it.
Wow.
So we also encourage repurposing and thrifting. Because quite often you're going to wear that wedding trouser just once in a lifetime during your wedding and not after that.
Exactly.
So why can't you just... So there are a lot of things that we can start off small immediately. And we don't want to, be activists out there. But this is, I think, real problems that our planet is going to face going forward. And if we can make these small changes in the way we celebrate our special occasions, that's not restricted only to weddings. That's even if you have a house party,
right?
You have a birthday party. Stop using balloons. Balloons are non-recyclable, non-destructible, and they're very harmful for birds and animals.
Right.
So can you not use balloons and use buntings instead? Can you just be mindful of the kind of food wastage that you have at events? We have a lot of these live counters at weddings, and we realized live counters are the best way to curtail food wastage vis-a-vis a buffet. So, I mean, there's small changes that you can do in the way we celebrate, and that will give great gratification. And start small, and then you can build on it.
Right.
It can be overwhelming, very, very overwhelming to start off with. But I mean, just carrying a handkerchief today will ensure that you stop using tissues.
Oh, yes, of course. Absolutely. That's a wrap for this episode of Cool It Down. Thank you, Ashwin, for sharing your journey, inspiring us with the possibilities of green weddings. Thank you so much for walking the talk, doing it yourself, and then taking it ahead. Many congratulations to Nupur as well. Celebrating love doesn't have to come at the cost of the planet. It can be thoughtful, creative, and just as beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sayema. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks so much.
So clearly, it doesn't take much to have a mindful green celebration. We can actually rethink how we celebrate. Can we use eco-friendly materials? Can we have minimalistic weddings? Can we rent cutlery? Can we reduce decoration waste? Pick any, but do start. And for entrepreneurs, this has huge potential. Green weddings are the future, be it catering or decoration. I'm sure you're going back with a bag full of ideas. How cool is that? On that note, this is your host Sayema signing off from another episode and leaving you with loads of ideas and things to do today. I'm going to be back with more climate connections, business ideas, and takeaways to cool it down. Make sure you check back soon.
Cool it down. Let's make it our business.